Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Alwyn here. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. As always, we have a lot of stimulus updates, so let's just jump right into it. Congress has voted to extend the government shutdown to December the 18th because they are requesting for more time to work out the government funding bill and the stimulus package. On Monday, the Electoral College will vote, so this might put an end to the election talk. Before I start this video, all I ask from you guys is for you guys to gently obliterate the like button for good luck in both the Congress and for the YouTube algorithm. So let's look at the paths for the stimulus package to get passed today. So path 1 would be that absolutely nothing happens at all, and this is the worst case scenario. So this would lead to the eviction crisis and a ton of unemployment, especially in our government jobs, and also would be a disaster in the January 5th runoff election, where the Democrats and Republicans will continuously play the blame game, just going back and forth, blaming one another for the disaster that they've created. All this means is that one party will blame the other party for all the disasters, the other party will blame that party for all the disasters, and at the end of the day, the blame game will continue. And what does that mean? We have essentially a divided nation, unfortunately. The second path is that we have no state or local government aid or liability protection for businesses. Maybe we might have either a stimulus check or an unemployment package that gets passed. This would mean we would only be spending around $750 billion. While this sounds like a large amount when we distribute it to the entire American population, this isn't as much, and it might only cover for the bare minimum necessities for most of the American people, and we probably need it to be in the trillions for it to have a greater impact on the actual economy and in order for it to actually stimulate the entire economy. And finally, the third path would be passing that $908 billion stimulus package with state and local government funding and an unemployment check of $300 per week for 16 weeks or until employment. This would mean there's no stimulus checks, but this means that we would get renter relief, school aid, vaccine aid in terms of distribution, and administration. Or we could also pass the $916 billion, which would give $600 checks for both adults and children under the age of 17. The main concern for Congress is that they actually have to go ahead and pay back all of what they're spending right now to save the Americans in this trying times in about 20 years. But how I look at it is that our country has over a $27 trillion, yes, trillion dollar debt that we've been carrying on since the 1800s, the 1900s, and even to today. These debts are owed to various countries across the world, and they've been created as a result of many depressions and recessions, and a lot of world wars and just wars in general. So now I ask myself, why haven't we paid out this $27 trillion of debt, and will it ever be possible in our entire lifetime? Well, the main reason is that our debt actually gets smaller and smaller, believe it or not, over time. This is a result of, one, inflation, and our economy in America as a whole becoming a lot more and more productive. Over time, our economy will actually grow faster and faster than our debt will grow. So at the end of the day, America as a nation will benefit by not paying off their debts today, but instead paying off their debts in the future, while it's actually less valuable and a lot easier to pay down later on. Currently, economists are very concerned that we're going to go ahead and make the same mistakes as we did in the 2008 financial crisis. Experts are even going on to say that if we don't have a second stimulus check passed, what that could mean is that we're going to see the same dragging recovery since 2008, where the wealth gap disparity actually gets a lot larger and larger, where the rich get richer and the poor just get poorer at the end of the day. So how I look at it right now is that stimulus checks are more than just stimulus handouts or just stimulus checks in general. At this point, they are emergency relief for the American public. It's really important to understand how these bipartisan politics really work out, just because looking back at 2008, Congress actually passed an $830 stimulus bill, and that actually never ended up getting passed. They tried to get that bill passed for 2 years, but at the end, nothing actually happened. Currently, we have over 10 million people unemployed, and economists are saying that it's probably best to, skip the stimulus checks and just give out unemployment benefits to those who are unemployed. Economists believe by skipping the stimulus checks and just giving the unemployment relief to the people who are unemployed, that will have a much greater effect on the economy because they're a lot more likely to spend their money because they have nothing than a person who already has a job and they're getting this income on top of what they're already earning. Whereas the people who are already employed and are in good financial situation might just use that stimulus check money to go ahead and pay off debts, or to go ahead and stash the money under their bed, or do a lot of different things like invest in the market, invest in their retirement account, which essentially slows down the circulation of money, making the economy grow at a slower and slower pace. Ultimately, if that slows down our economy, it's going to be a lot harder for the entire American population. So what we need in order to best stimulate our economy is that people who are unemployed want to have money in their hands, so that way they can go ahead and most likely spend that money, which drives the economy, and that's what will help us to bring us out of this big pandemic. Keep in mind, the stimulus checks are very, very popular just because we can see a visible impact of the checks in like the entire American nation. But how I look at it is that now state and local governments combined have lost over $150 billion in state and local tax aid. So far, we have even lost over 1.2 million government jobs. So the $150 billion that might go to state and local governments as aid will not even cover the amount that they have lost in tax revenue. And keep in mind, it's not one particular city that's really badly hurting. It's the entire American cities. Most of the American cities as a whole are really struggling as a result of the loss in tax revenue dollars. Well, what does this result in? At the end of the day, this just results in public job layoffs, right? This means our police officers, our firefighters, all of our public jobs, all of the government employees at a larger and larger extent. Economists were even saying that if we were to go ahead and pass a stimulus check or an unemployment check, but not give state and local government aid, that nothing at all would happen as a result of no state and local government aid. Over 85% of economists said that their number one priority right now is both state and local funding over anything. The economists surveyed, and Jerome Powell himself, the chairman of the Fed, continuously saying that the same thing might happen as last recession, where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and the wealth disparity gap just increases a lot more. If Mitch McConnell's plan is followed and there is no state and government funding, no liability protection for businesses, but there's some form of either unemployment benefits or stimulus checks, this would mean that since there's no state and local government aid, it pretty much cancels out with any benefits that the unemployed or any stimulus check benefits that the American public receives. Without any state and local government funding, what happens is that there are more government job losses throughout the nation. Even with the $600 stimulus check, this still wouldn't cover the bigger picture just because the state and local governments are not being funded. Republicans believe that if we can do another PPP loan plan, then businesses can go ahead and hire a lot more employees, which will completely take out the problem. But in order for these businesses to continue to survive, we still need that flow of money, meaning that even the unemployed and people in general still need a form of relief so that they can go ahead and spend that money. Otherwise, businesses can hire people for a limited time using their PPP loan, but after that time, they cannot continue to support it unless the people, the American consumers, have money that's being circulated within the economy. And if millions of government employees are laid off from their jobs, that would mean that businesses have less money on employing more and more people. States will lose an additional $167 billion in the 2021 year, which will result in further unemployment. Chicago's mayor was very emotional when she saw that the state and local government funding was kind of up in the air and could be excluded from the package completely. She said that we are hurting, not just Chicago, but towns across the entire country are hurting. It would be a tragedy if there was no sort of accommodation for both state and local governments who are suffering, not because of anything else, not because of pensions, not because of long-standing structural issues, but directly as a result of COVID-19. The Democrats also had the opportunity to accept a $1.9 trillion package, but they were too focused on winning the election for Joe Biden that they didn't pursue the $1.9 trillion package, saying that it was all or nothing during the election cycle. Currently, CDC Director Robert Redfield believes that we need $6 billion in order to distribute and administer the COVID-19 vaccine. The really good news is that both of the current plans that are in place, the $908 billion plan and the $916 billion plan, both have $16 billion set aside for the administration and distribution of these vaccines. So that is a very positive note. Hopefully you guys all learned something new and enjoyed the video. Thank you all so much for your continued support. Make sure to drop a like down below. It helps me out tremendously. Subscribe if you're new and would like to see more content like this. Turn on those post notifications so that way you're aware of when I do upload my next video. And comment down below. Till next time. Peace.